Thank you for those who keep on reading these updates and are sticking with me through this entire situation. But I'm getting mentally drained and defeated having to constantly write out these posts nearly every single day. Since the end of my last post, absolutely nothing has gotten better. Shortly after I posted the last update in the hospital lobby, a couple of doctors came out to update me about Ethan. I closed my laptop and set it on a little table next to me and got up. "So what's the word?" I asked them. "Will my son be okay?" The doctors thankfully nod their head. "Yes, he will be fine. He will need stitches on his chest for a while, but you're lucky the cut wasn't much deeper." One of the doctors, who was a female, said to me. The other one, a man, proceeded to ask me, "How did he get that large of a cut anyways? It looked like razor-sharp claws went through his chest." I opened my mouth to tell him everything, but I stopped myself, because I didn't want to sound crazy, or make it sound like an excuse to hide that it was somehow me who did it. I wasn't going to a mental hospital or possibly jail for something I didn't do. So I lied. I honestly don't know. I just heard him crying in the other room and saw him bleeding, so I brought him here as quickly as I could. The doctors look at each other, then back at me. "Alright, well, your son is good to go, and I hope you have a good rest of your day," the female doctor says to me, smiling, then walks back with her partner to retrieve Ethan. I was relieved he was okay, but then I started wondering, what if I didn't wake up? What if I wasn't quick enough to break him out of that phase? Why didn't the blessing Father Sam gave to the window work? Afraid, I pulled out my phone and called the sheriff and put it up to my ear, and I was already getting impatient by the first ring, almost bouncing in place, checking the clock that was on the wall near the door as I could hear stretchers of other patients rolling from behind me. Finally, the sheriff picked up. I must have woken him up from his sleep, because the first thing he said was, "What?" in a groggy, irritated voice. "Listen, man, I'm sorry to wake you up, but the blessing the priest gave to my window didn't work," I say into the phone, in a sort of whisper so nobody else in the hospital could hear me. And as I said that, my ex-wife started to call me. I winced. What? It didn't work? How? The sheriff said, sounding immediately woken up by that very statement. "Yeah, Ethan was out the window again, and he was actually talking to the demons this time. I guess they told him to try and kill me, but he didn't listen, and they started scratching deep into his chest to rip his heart out. Listen, just come to the hospital. I need to make a phone call," I say quickly into the phone. The sheriff starts to say something, but I hang up to answer my ex-wife. Before I could even say anything, not even a second into the call, I could hear my ex-wife screaming at me through the phone. You fucking cunt! You let our son get hurt. You're an awful person. She screams, almost exactly like a red fox, and she starts breaking down, crying. I try to calm her down, though I know what I was doing wasn't working. I don't know what happened. Just listen to me. I woke up to him screaming, and I ran in and saw the bleeding, and I rushed him to the hospital. Look, I'm doing everything I can raising this boy. I raised my voice through the phone. Her sobbing settled down by a minuscule. What caused the cut in the first place, prick? She hisses. I sigh and I stutter for a moment. It's hard to explain. Just come to the hospital and I'll talk to you about something serious. The sheriff is going to be here too. I tell her, knowing she probably won't listen. I hear her sniffles, but the noise was constricted. It felt like she didn't want me to hear her anymore. Finally, she spoke after what seemed like an endless second. She sniffed again and said, "Okay, but I'm only doing this for our son." Then hung up. I keep my phone up to my ear for a few seconds after she hung up and looked down at my feet. God, I was a mess. I'm surprised I'm not already broken down and in a mental hospital for all that I've been dealing with. I let my arm lower from my ear slowly as I slid my phone into my pocket. Defeated, I walked back over to my chair and slumped down on it, ignoring an older man trying to speak to me, asking if I'm okay. He walked away after he sensed I wouldn't respond. I wasn't in the mood for a conversation right now, anyway. My rest is short-lived when the entrance doors blast open and the sheriff walks in, startling everyone in the lobby. Everyone stares at him, fearful. Sorry everyone, Sheriff says, letting a slight smile show. Didn't mean to scare anyone. There's no emergency at the moment. He rushes through his sentence and approaches me and lifts me from my chair, surprising me as he did. How? He said, leaning his face close to mine, his eyes showing that he was scared. Scared just like me. How did the blessing not work? He whispers loudly. He holds onto my shoulders as I struggle to let words out. I don't know, I say in a depressed tone. The sheriff cleared his throat and let go of me and put his hands in his pockets. Okay, well, I guess I just have to call Father Sam again. Did he tell you what would happen if the blessing didn't work? Sheriff eyed me. I nodded. He said that the blessing would either work or would just make the demons pissed off, I answer. Do you think the demons tried killing your son because he disobeyed them, or because the blessing just made him mad? The sheriff asked, scratching his neck. Both, I say, not bothering emphasizing. I still don't know Ethan's full conversation with them, I say as I look through the hospital windows and see my ex-wife's SUV pull into the parking lot. Have you told anyone else about this? Sheriff says as he looks at where I'm looking. I watched my ex-wife get out of her car and begin speed walking towards the hospital doors. Yeah, I told my ex-wife, I say looking away. You heard the sheriff chuckle. Your ex-wife? You have an ex-wife? Sheriff laughs as he tries to stop coughing in the process. 2 of them. I start to lightly laugh with him as my ex-wife explodes through the front door. She sees me and the sheriff in the middle of the lobby as she walks towards us. She looks at the sheriff. Hello, Sheriff. She greets him. She then looks at me and gives me a snobby look. So, Sheriff, my ex over here told me that you needed to tell me something about my son. The sheriff looks at me, unsure if he should tell her. I nod at him, and he looks back at her. Ma'am, your son's bedroom window at your ex-husband's house. It's infested with demons. They lure him towards it, and he goes into a blank state and hears voices and visions of the future. Terrible things. And once the time has come for the vision to happen that they planned, they take control of his mind. And they'll continue until they're able to possess his whole body. I forgot to mention this to your ex-husband, but sometimes if he's out the window enough, sometimes they'll get into his mind uninvited. I can't explain it all in full detail here, but I will when we're in a more contained area. Father Sam knows more than I do, though. Sheriff explains. My ex looks lost. What? Who's Father Sam? She clearly doesn't know what to say. And I feel bad having her hear all about this. He's a priest. He's my friend. He tried blessing his house, but it didn't work. The sheriff says as Ethan gets taken out of his hospital room and towards us. Upon seeing him, my ex-wife rushed and hugs him tightly and asks if he's okay. I can hear him saying that he was fine, that he was okay. Man, I hoped he would remain okay until we get all this figured out. The sheriff leans into my ear as Ethan and his mother hug each other, and she tells him everything is going to be alright. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what we can do anymore. I'm sorry. You might just have to live with this. The sheriff apologizes to me and begins to walk away towards the doors, kicking his feet. I step in front of him and talk to him before he can exit. No, there has to be something we can do. You're just going to let me and my son be in danger forever? No. I need Father Sam's help. We can't give up, I say to him. He shakes his head. I look at Ethan walking over to us, showing curiousness on his face to what's going on as my ex-wife stares at me and the sheriff. I can tell, for the first time in years, she actually looked concerned for me. The sheriff looks down at Ethan, looking at us, holding his stitched chest, then sighs and looks at me. Fine. I'll call Father Sam and tell him to go to your house for the night and help you get the demons away. Take your son to his mom's house so he doesn't interfere by standing in front of it. This is a last resort. If it doesn't work, then you're screwed. I think about that. If the blessing didn't work, what else would work? Bless the house again? Yeah, right. But I had to try. I had to try for Ethan. I had to try for my family. Alright. Let's do it, I say. What's he gonna do? I say, holding Ethan close to me. Sheriff rubs his chin. I don't know what he'll do. He's the priest, not me. You'll just have to trust him, he says, pulling out his phone. I'll call him and let him know. Let Ethan go with his mom tonight, for his sake. He then begins to call Father Sam after saying that and walks out of the hospital. My ex-wife comes over and grabs Ethan's hand and looks at me. A look of empathy. Good luck. I mean it this time. I look at her in the face, and I forgot how beautiful she really was. As I'm about to say something, she then hugs me, but then breaks away a second later, realizing what she did. We both pretend to cough and clear our throats. I itch my ear awkwardly. Yeah. Take care of Ethan tonight, please, I say. I look down at Ethan and rub his head, then start to walk out of the hospital. Dad, where are you going? Ethan asks me as I begin to walk out of the hospital. I stop and turn around to look across at Ethan. I'm gonna help this family. I'm going to help our house. Get some rest tonight, buddy. I smile at Ethan as he waves to me and says goodbye. As I get in my car and start up, I sit there and think for a moment. Will I really be able to solve this? I wasn't confident, but I had to do everything I could. Love is stronger than fear. I couldn't let the demons feed on my fear. I started my car and started my drive back to my house. Once I got home, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything for the rest of the day. I slept, looked back at my son's drawings, and ate. I ate a lot of food throughout the day. I also drank. I drank a lot also throughout the day. I think I was drunk by the time it was almost 8 p.m. I had fallen into a deep sleep at the kitchen counter, my head laid out and my arms flat out. I bet that if someone had seen me like that, they would think I was dead. I was awoken by the sound of someone knocking on the front door. My eyes shot open and I shot myself into a straight seating position, confused as my head was aching and my legs were cramped. I struggled to get up and even walk to the door. That's how bad of a shape I was in. When I opened the door, it was Father Sam, here to help me yet again with the demons in my household. He greeted me, but saw that I must have been drunk and tired. He immediately pushed me lightly and set me down on the couch. I tried speaking, but I was too dizzy to say anything. However, I could hear Father Sam speaking to me. I know the blessing didn't work, and like I feared, it made the demons mad. What I think is, the holy water put them in a really bad mood last night, and the disobedience your son showed contributed to that, thus the scratching that ensued. You're lucky you saved him just in time, otherwise he would have been dead. He was just a few seconds away from being off this earth, off chasing butterflies with the Lord. I promise you though, I will solve this tonight and help you and your son, Father Sam said in a very preachy way. I opened my eyes a little bit more, my vision not as blurry, my head not as dizzy, and saw Father Sam had a big book in his hand. I pointed to it, still not able to speak well. What is that? I struggled to speak. Father Sam showed me the page he was on. It's a prayer in my book. The prayer, once I read it out, will be sent out to the demons and will wipe them all out. You will have to try your best to stay quiet and not interrupt. This is a prayer that is very powerful, and I can only do once here. Father Sam takes a step back. You rest. I'll get it all sorted out for you. And with that, Father Sam ventured off down the hall, trying to find Ethan's room. I can hear the sound of him pushing open the door of my son's room, and making his way near the window. And as I listen, I hear and feel my phone ringing in the kitchen. I felt much more alert and healthy than I did before, though I still had a bit of a headache, which hurt like a bitch. I made my way into the kitchen and picked up my phone. It was my ex-wife. I found and picked up and put it to my ear. "Hello?" I said, interrupted by my ex-wife's cries. I immediately get worried. Ethan's gone. I don't know where he went. She continues crying, and I can feel my heart beating 1,000 miles per hour. I wasn't there. I didn't know where my ex-wife now lived. I can't just go out and try to find him. How? How did he run away? Why did he do it? I say, and she said she didn't know. The last she saw him, he was sitting up in his bed, staring right at his wall, not moving at all. Once I heard that, I had a strange feeling in my stomach. Butterflies, to be exact. Okay. Call the police and file a missing child's case, I say as I pass the back door, and I notice as I walk by the back door that there was a giant hole in my backyard. Last time I saw, there was not a big hole in my backyard. I saw this because my back door is made of glass, so I saw it very easily from the corner of my eye. I stare at it as I hear Father Sam begin his prayer. I slowly open the back door and walk out as my ex-wife tries talking to me. My ears drown out her voice as I make my way closer to the hole in my backyard. And I realize that the hole was where Ziggy's grave was. Someone had opened it. I looked in and saw that Ziggy's body wasn't there. I had a terrible feeling, and I could feel myself shaking in fear, ready to scream. But I didn't want to interrupt Father Sam's prayer. My ex-wife could hear my small, fearful sounds. What's going on?" she asks. I start to slowly speak to her in a quiet tone. "Ziggy's grave. Someone opened it and took it." I could hear her gasp as I walked backwards back towards the door. But then I heard something swinging around from the side of the house. I tell my ex-wife I heard something, and I lower the phone and I walk slowly to investigate the side of the house. I take small steps, afraid that I was going to find something terrible. I finally turned the corner to face the side of the house, and I was right. It was the corpse of Ziggy, slowly decomposing, swinging around on a long string, her arm twisted around terribly. Whoever had done this had done even worse shit to her. I scream at the sight of this. I didn't care, and I put the phone back up to my ear. Someone put Ziggy's body on a string on the side of my house. Now it's swinging around. I was interrupted by the screams of Father Sam. I have to call you back, I say to my ex-wife. I quickly hang up and sprint it inside, and sprint it past the living room and down the hall. I turned into my son's room and saw Ethan choking out Father Sam against the wall, with a large knife raised, preparing to impale Father Sam with it. But I knew it wasn't Ethan. Ethan! I scream, and Ethan turned to face me. His eyes were pale, wide eyes, and I remembered those were the eyes of the thing he had drawn a few days prior. He dropped Father Sam in his place and let him slide down to the floor as Father Sam started coughing. Whatever was controlling my son's mind then jumped over the bed and started making his way towards me. I was terrified. How the fuck did they get into his mind? He wasn't even home. I scream to Father Sam as he gets closer and closer to me. Father Sam keeps coughing, but he's able to cough his answer out. The demons found their way to Ethan's location. I don't know how. All I know is we're doomed. Father Sam says, still coughing. He sounded like he was in bad shape, and I was going to bed in a bad shape sooner rather than later. Reminder that Ethan is not really Ethan. The demons were fulfilling their wishes. Ethan swings his knife towards me, and I use my right hand to grab his wrist. I wasn't sure that if I fought him, that if Ethan himself would feel the pain, or if the demon would feel it. I didn't want to take a chance. I used all the strength I have to push Ethan's hand down and bend it, and Ethan goes down to a knee. I continue pushing down, and I put my left hand down on his hand as assist. I continued pushing down, and I could hear the demon struggling inside of Ethan's problem. But instead of showing pain, he just started laughing. Whichever demon was controlling my son's mind, he was laughing at the fight I was putting up. I continued pushing down on his arm with all the power I had. At this point, believing the demon would feel the pain and not Ethan. But before I could do anything else, Ethan let out a devilish roar and overpowered me easily, and blasted me back first into the wall that I was already pretty close to. And I swear, I could hear some bones in my back cracking. I let out a pained yell as I still heard Father Sam coughing and saw Ethan making his way towards me, tightening his grip on the knife. Tightening his grip on his knife. He took a wild swing with his knife down towards me, and I quickly rolled out of the way, and the knife went all the way through the wooden floor. I got up as the demon slowly pulled the knife from the floor, and I kicked the knife out of his hand, and it flew down the hallway into the entrance to the living room. Ethan started laughing, This demon motherfucker was in my son's body, and there's nothing I'm able to do about it except to somehow protect myself. We will be able to possess your son's body, whether you like it or not. It roars at me, and I get even more scared after hearing its full voice. And it isn't until I remember what these demons did to my son last night that they tried to kill him for disobeying what they told him to do. That's when all my fear got thrown out the window, and I got an adrenaline rush. Ethan threw a punch at me, but I ducked it, and he punched the wall instead, and left an enormous dent in it. He turned around to face me, and I pushed Ethan against the wall, and I punched it across the face. The demon can definitely feel the pain because the demon let out a grunt as I punched him. With this knowledge, and I continued punching Ethan across the face as the demon kept letting out grunts of pain, but it never went down. And I don't think I've ever punched harder in my entire life. I yelled at the demon controlling my son's mind and went to punch him again, but this time it caught my hand, and it started to grin at me in my son's body as it started to slowly twist my hand around, attempting to snap it. It was abnormally strong, and I was afraid my hand was going to be broken for the rest of my life as I felt a tremendous pain in my hand. Before Ethan was able to do it, I was able to kick him square in the shin, and it let out a shock from the kick. Before I could follow up with another attack, Ethan grabbed my throat and started to choke me out, and I was starting to slowly lose oxygen and get my neck broken. He was squeezing hard as Ethan looked down at me, giving me an evil, wicked grin. That's when there was a knock at the door, and I heard the sheriff's voice call out my name and say, "Your ex-wife told me to come here to search for your son and see if he's here. Can you let me in?" Sheriff yells out. Ethan's head snaps to look down the hall at the door as it's growled. Ethan's head snaps to look down the hall at the door as it growled, and it roared out, "Enter if you want your friends to die." Right after it said that, I could hear the sheriff start to try and break down the door. Ethan let go of my throat, and I dropped to the floor and started gasping for air. It was difficult to breathe. I saw Ethan stand at the end of the hallway, awaiting for the sheriff to make it inside. After a few attempts, the sheriff was able to kick down the door, and he ran out with his gun drawn. He turned to his right and saw Ethan standing down the hall, and the sheriff instantly knew that his mind was being controlled. "Look, you evil waste of sperm, get out of that boy's mind. Stop attempting to possess his body and leave that window. I'm warning you, I will blast you the fuck away," the sheriff yells. The demon in my son's mind doesn't react. I look at the sheriff, and the sheriff looks at me. "But if you shoot and kill the demon, doesn't that kill Ethan too?" I say, still gasping for air. The sheriff shrugs. "I don't know. I don't think so. But I might have to shoot this fucker before I find out," the sheriff says. He looks back at Ethan as it widens its grin and walks towards the sheriff. I could see the fear on the sheriff's face. "Stay back," the sheriff yells, his fingers shaking on the trigger. "Stay back," the sheriff yells, his finger shaking on the trigger. Ethan doesn't stop, and he makes it right in front of the sheriff and tries to grab his gun, but the sheriff headbutts Ethan back and lets out a grunt. The sheriff shoots Ethan in the hand, and the demon lets out a screech. I cover my ears after hearing that terrible sound. The sheriff points the gun at Ethan's head, but it quickly recovers and grabs the sheriff's hand and moves it up as the sheriff pulls the trigger and the bullet goes up to the roof. Ethan takes the gun out of the sheriff's hand. Ethan takes the gun out of the sheriff's hand and grabs him by the hair and points the gun at his face as I hear it chuckling. The sheriff struggles to get out of its grip and I'm forced to watch. But I was gonna fight until the end. I make my way up after catching my breath and call out to the demon that was trying to take over my son. If you're gonna kill someone, I start to say. Ethan hears me and slams the sheriff down on the wooden floor and turns around. Ethan's eyes were getting more pale now as whatever was in his mind stares at me and laughs and repeat myself. If you're gonna kill someone, take me, motherfucker. I spread my arms as a sacrifice. I look at the sheriff from behind Ethan, and he looks at me, shaking his head. I was fine with this fate. I did everything I could to protect my son. Just then, Father Sam came limping out of the room, just now catching his breath. Ethan's attention quickly shifts to Father Sam as he points at him and pulls the trigger. The bullet pierces through his chest and Father Sam collapses on the ground as I jump at the sight. Now, it's your turn. The roar comes from my son's mouth. I look at the pale eyes of the demon that replaced my son's. My heart was beating harder than before now. Now I felt like I had to avenge Father Sam now. The gun gets pointed at me, but before I could pull the trigger, I run towards it and grab the gun and point it towards Ethan's face. I could see its face turn from confidence to actual fear. I made this demon in my son's mind actually scared. I then shoved the gun out of its hand and dropped it on the floor. It went for a punch across my face, but I ducked it and got behind Ethan and put it in a chokehold, squeezing as hard as I could, knowing that the demon could feel it, hoping that it would somehow get squeezed out of my son's head, though I knew it would do nothing. I have it in the hold for quite some time as I could hear it struggling, before it grabbed my arm and head and threw me over itself and slammed me hard on the wooden floor, laying me out and knocking the breath clean out of me. I watch as the sheriff gets up for one last stand as Ethan turns around to face him. The sheriff goes to grab the demon, but it sidestepped and grabs its head, and he bashes his face into the wall twice. He drops him to the floor, the sheriff now unconscious. I could see the blood running down his forehead, his nose fractured. I looked up as Ethan looked around at our bodies and laughed hysterically. I'll spare you for now, it calmly says, though still laughing, then stares down at me, no longer laughing. Your son's whole body, though. It will be ours soon, it growls. Those words, that growl, it genuinely terrified me. Ours, it says one more time. and I watched as Ethan's eyes going from a pale white color to normal, and Ethan, now himself again, fall to the floor. I breathed a sigh of relief and crawled over to my boy and held him close to me as I hear police sirens in the distance. I watch as the sheriff regains his consciousness and slowly sit up, blood still all over his face. We look at each other, tired and hurt. Our end is near, Sheriff mumbled to me. I nod with the room given on the floor. Yeah, I respond. But this is for my son. I'm not gonna let the demons win. I'll find a way to beat them. I'll find a way. That last sentence got drowned out as 2 police cars pulled into the driveway, and 4 cops ran in, helping everyone up, asking what happened, and calling a medic for Father Sam. While all of this was happening, as my house was filled with the lights of the cop cars making their way into the house, all I could think about was that fight and how much my son had mattered to me. I always knew he mattered, but I never realized that if anything ever happened to him, I would probably jump off a bridge. I would take a bullet for his sake. That's what I tried doing. I promise everyone. As I type this in an interrogation room early in the morning, I will try to find closure in this. It probably won't be soon. I might die in the process. But I won't let the demons win. I won't let them possess my son's body. I will fight until the end. Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in to another video. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you next time.